I was just unlucky to be born in my era. I think at the time with that amount of quality, but too much pressure can kill people. And I've seen the negativity that goes into on the sidelines, and the referees getting absolutely hammered. And the first thing I said to him, I said, "Where does Alan Shearer sit?" And he pointed to a spot. Now I went over there and I sat down. I went, "I'll be sitting here." And he looked at me straight away and he thought, "Who the hell do you think you are?"
Guys, welcome back to the So Close, So Far podcast. It's your host, Sohail Var. I am here with Ben and Josh, today swapping roles. And they're very excited for today's guest. I'm not excited. Every time I see him, he makes me run. Just kidding. Hyped for this episode. Let me read out the stats. You guys try and take a guess who it is before we announce the guest. So he's got over 200 appearances in the Prem, 13 seasons in the Prem. By the way, 215 appearances for Newcastle United. He's played in multiple different continents, Australia, Europe, North America, Asia, all over, and recently transitioned to a manager role and is actually my current manager at Gulf United. Stephen Taylor, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us, guys.
Absolute pleasure. We're delighted you're here.
So I guess first thing we got to get out the way, last night, Cup final. Thoughts on the game?
Do you really want to start that way?
I don't know. Yeah, why are you starting on a downer?
All right, let's start on a bright mood. We got 2 games left. So context, Stephen is my coach at Gulf United. We've had a great season so far. 2 games left in the season. Pretty much it comes down to getting 2 wins. Yeah. We get those 2 wins, we get promotion. So it's looking good. I guess that brightens the mood a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. What was the result last night? I didn't see it.
We killed them.
Yeah, we killed them 5-0 last night. So for me, it was a good start to the night, and then go and enjoy the second half. But 2-0 down, watching Newcastle Man United game was killing me. Just obviously how many years we've been waiting for something like this, and especially the squad, the team, the manager we've got now was probably the best we've probably looked in a long time.
We were in the best position to do it last night, weren't we?
I think so, yeah. I think with everything going on, the form we've been in this season, I think the fear factor now going into games where, we're outworking teams and we're causing a lot of problems. I think for Manchester United, they got lucky, I think, with a couple of the decisions and performance from our boys. They give everything, so there's no, obviously, bad vibe from the Newcastle fans. They give their all. So that was the biggest thing for me.
Well, I think in terms of the experience, I mean, we took, I think Sky Sports said, close to 100,000 from Newcastle down to London, invaded Trafalgar Square. Wow. And there wasn't a red shirt in sight in the whole of Wembley Way. No. So even the black and white flags and scarves in the last minute when we're 2-0 down and, it's a lost cause at that point, I think that sets us apart, and there's only one real United, to be honest, in terms of the support.
I saw some of the videos like leading up to the match, and I've never really seen like much of Newcastle United, but the fans you guys have is insane,
unrivaled.
That's just normal. That's just like a normal day in Newcastle.
Yeah.
Listen, we come down to London and we take over London. I think I felt like there was millions, never mind hundreds of thousands.
100%.
It felt like millions just took over London. The atmosphere, everyone in the black and white shirts, and that just goes back to the old school era, the Kevin Keegan days, the Sir Bobby Robson days. That feel-good factor's back. You see how happy the fans are, and then enjoying themselves again. And that's the biggest thing, I think, for many years now. They haven't had that something to look forward to, and I think the belief is there now.
What do you make of the connection with the ownership? Obviously, I saw a lot of footage of my dad and Jamie Rubin, and obviously Amanda Staveley. They were in and amongst the craziness at Trafalgar Square.
Darren Eales as well.
Darren Eales, with a pint of lager in his hand and singing the songs, and we've got Bruno in the middle. Like, what do you make of that compared to what it was like during your time?
It's how it should be. I think for Newcastle, you have to understand what you're coming into. They've got involved in ownership of the football club. It's a football city, and I think the fan base that Newcastle's got is still a sleeping giant. Like if we won yesterday, what it do for Newcastle puts us on the map. The attraction for players coming. But they buy into it. They understand what they were doing. They've come here. They've got the right people involved. I think organisation with getting the sporting director Dan Ashworth from Brighton. I think they've bought very smart. People probably expected all the money that was coming in, investment. We're going to go and buy Mbappe and all these top names. But I think their plan for the next 3 to 5 years is working. Maybe we're going a bit too fast, this season. Did they expect to be where they were? Probably not. But if you ask the ownerships this year, where do you want to be? I would say probably Champions League. I think they honestly believe we can get Champions League, and then next year, can we kick on?
Yeah, for sure.
Is silverware just a matter of time?
I think so. I think it's just we've proved that this year. Like I've said, the main focus was, I think, top 4. I think the season that we're having, and I think the teams who you expect to be up there, they've been out of form and they haven't been hitting their main form from maybe the World Cup. I think it's affected a lot of teams, and a lot of players have struggled, whether that's through injury, lack of form. A lot of players unhappy, managers coming in, and I think Graham Potter's been under pressure, but he's a top manager. Has he had his full strength side? Had a lot of injuries, and I think his main thing for me, I said the other day, was his Kante and players like that. When you miss big players like that, it affects your team.
In terms of your own Newcastle United career, let's start from the very beginning. I was actually doing a bit of research, and I found so many similarities between us. Both 6'2", both English, both started our careers as strikers, transitioned into defenders in our early teens. So I just looked at myself in the mirror and was like, where did it all go wrong? So I want to know from your side, how was football, obviously being in Newcastle, it's just football mad, but how was the start in football for you?
I think from a football background with my cousin, Adam Sadler, who is now the Leicester City assistant manager. He was at Manchester United as a kid, as a goalkeeper, always up there every night playing football with him. My dad, every time after school, was always in the field with friends, and it was always the kind of way I've always been around the football environment, and always playing against older players. And I've always found myself playing better against older players, because you have to test yourself, challenge yourself, and you want to fit in. You don't want to just play at your kind of like your same age. And I've always been a striker, I think up till maybe under 13s, where one game we had no defenders, and I went to play at centre back against one of the best young attackers at the time. But I believe that I was the best attacker at the time, so I thought, I've got to stop this kid.
Did you dream of having the number 9?
Oh, always. I think the thing when you come through is you obviously the Alan Shearers of the world, and I think it's one of the things as a young kid, you go and you try and be like him on the field with your friends and your dad and stuff. And when I got the opportunity, I think, to go and play centre half against top attackers, for you it's an incentive to stop them. And when you have a good game against them, that was it, because I relished that kind of opportunity of stopping and being around players who are going to give us that a bit of feistiness, and it drive me a bit, and that definitely did. And I never looked back. At 13 years old, been at Newcastle since I was 9. Left school at 16, refused to go into the academy, and went straight into the reserves. And that was the biggest thing for me. I think when I was coming through, there wasn't many young kids getting the opportunity to play first team. Some would play in the League Cup, but then just get lost in the system. You know, whether they had to go down and start the trade at League Two and then build themselves back up. But I always had that belief of, I'm going to be here. Once I get my chance, I'll be here to stay. I think there was like seven defenders ahead of me at the time. I had the Caldwell brothers, top defenders, very, very good. And when I was coming up, learning from them definitely helped me. Because what happens when you leave I left school at 16, going to the reserves, there's not too much coaching individual. You kind of learn when you just get thrown in there. It's like you basically get thrown in and it's like, good luck.
Yeah.
And you got to learn quick. The likes of Aaron Hughes, Jonathan Woodgate, being around them kind of players, and it definitely helps you. Gary Speed, one of the guys who I always looked up to. What does he do on a day-to-day basis? How he trains, and being around the likes of Alan Shearer, Shea Given, leaders, characters around the dressing room, what they're like off the pitch, how they're around the dressing room with the foreign players coming in, how they deal with keeping everybody together. And definitely one person who I think helped me was Gary Speed, and just the kind of belief, the way he trained. And it's probably one of the reasons why I train my players now the way like he did, because he used to run, and the extra work that he used to put in after training was, I used to think, bloody, I'm doing a lot of running here. But as a kid, you have to learn that if you want to survive, you've got to earn your respect. And I'm a big believer in that now. And I think a lot of young kids forget about, you have to earn your stripes. It's too much handed to them now, especially young players coming through. Yeah. They're driving the G-Wagons, they've got the Range Rovers, they've got the money coming in at 16 years old, and they have to have that hunger. And I think they'll lose that. And that's one of the good things I love what I do now. With Gulf United, we're around a lot of hungry players who don't get paid, who enjoy playing for the football club, who want to go to the next level, who use it as a platform. Everyone's got their own little individual story for what they want to do. And, it's great for me to be around everyone just hungry, coming in.
Everyone's got the right motivation.
Yeah. It's the best. And to be around that's what I love being out here. And I think at the moment going back, could I go back into the academy and do that maybe back home in England? Yeah, I probably could do that. but I won't be around the hunger that I'm around right now, which I love. And every day, people who know me understand that. And I'm a very intense guy. I love to work out, even out here 4 times a week. I'm working out, hit classes, keep myself busy twice a week doing 7-a-side games. And the guys are going, you didn't have a switch off button, but I've had 21 years. People got to realize 21 years of routine.
It doesn't just switch off.
No, it doesn't. And like we said before this was, the one thing I do miss is the Saturday feeling, that the nerves, the pre-match, the build-up play before the game, all that kind of who you're playing against, because every game is different. And it's all the excitement, and you're playing and you're doing something you love. And for me, I lived the dream, and I'm still living the dream now with my second job here, which is obviously manager of a football club. But there's no better feeling, and I think anyone would be lying to you if they says is anything else outside of football as a football player. There's nothing. That is the best job in the world.
100%. Just want to compare something. So when we had Bakary Sagna on the other week, he told us, like, during his formative years, growing up until around about the age of 15, he only trained once per week with his team. How did that compare with what you were doing around that age? Were you training once, twice? Because we look at Dubai, for example, kids that age are training 3-4 times a week plus a match day. So I just want to see from your side, having made it.
I was very, very lucky. Literally every night there was something on. I think it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday was Newcastle. Tuesday, Thursday was normally your county or your boys club. Then on a Saturday would normally be Newcastle. On a Sunday would always be your Sunday League football. And I was very lucky to have my parents who would leave work early, come down, get me, take me to train. And by the way, never late. That's one thing, having parents who were big on that discipline. The values that they had was very drilled in, never be late, always get there early. And I was about 42 to 43 kids from under 9 all the way through to under 16s every year was getting a cut. Parents couldn't get the kids to training. Top quality players, better players than me, but they didn't have that drive. The parents couldn't get them there. Unfortunately, for whatever reason that was, I was very fortunate. My parents gave me that opportunity. Every game, my dad was there watching. Standing in the cold and rain. And I'm on about it. I think it was the month when I'm watching my godson come out playing. There's a little bit of wind here, and I thought, I'm getting bloody soft now. I'm in Dubai. I was like, my mum and dad watching the games and their courts and wind. Newcastle's weather like freezing cold, snow, gale, everything.
The North Sea wind.
Yeah,
cuts through.
But as a kid, you don't really appreciate what they had to do. The sacrifices, getting you new boots.
Yeah.
The arguments they probably had about how much you're spending on kit, training, getting to training. Leaving work early, causing problems at work. I didn't understand that as a kid. I'm probably ringing, where are you? Hurry up. And
not knowing,
No, I think that was a very fortunate lad to have that, and the support that I always had with my dad. And the biggest thing for me when I was young was having a dad who would just say, you win, lose or draw, I'm proud of you. That's the worst thing you can say to me. Don't just say that. I've got to go and win now. So no matter what I do, I've got to go out there to win. And that's what I obviously say to my Gulf United lads, you do whatever it takes to win. And hopefully that'll help them in life as well, and not just in football. It's building their characters for what they've been through. Everyone's got their own story, and emotion was definitely one of the biggest things that I use.
That's been one of the recurring themes of the last few episodes, actually, how pivotal parents have been, the sacrifices they've had to make to get their kids to where they are. Sagna, Dale Gordon, they were talking about relocating, going hour-and-a-half drives there and back to get to certain fixtures, for example. So it's refreshing to hear again that, they're so instrumental in getting you there. And obviously, whether it's praise or how proud you are or constructive criticism, it all plays a part.
I think a lot of parents these days, and I've seen it firsthand, is the parents are so demanding. They want their kid to be the next Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. They're very pushy, and they want to kind of just keep getting at them. But you got to realize too much pressure can kill people. And I've seen the negativity that goes into on the sidelines, and the referees are getting absolutely hammered. I think the kids, the amount of pressure that's put on them. And even after the game, when they go on that car journey back home, how's the kid feeling? I never had that. Even though I had a bad game as a young kid, but dad would be always just making sure, hey, don't worry about that. Next game, you're going to be unbelievable. He always made me feel amazing. He knew when to put his arm around me.
Yeah.
Similar to manager Sir Bobby Robson. The times where you're not having a good time, is arm around you. The times where you think you're getting ahead of yourself, kick up the arse. And that's the good thing, how a man manage your players. And I think it's important in life, and especially your parents, your upbringing. You can always tell a player off their upbringing. And I think that goes in modern day football now. And there's a lot of guys who use the hurt from family, they use the hurt from their upbringing and whatever it is. Everyone's got a story, and it's how you kind of present it and how much you want it. And some people use it where they're very vocal and they're very insecure, but that's their kind of way of like getting out their shell. But when they come away from football, they go back to that kind of insecurity.
Yeah.
But a lot of people need that attention. You just got to understand each character, each player. Everyone's different.
Yeah. What was your mindset going into, so as a youth player, you mentioned you had a couple years where you played a level up, right? And then at 17 too, you made your debut with the first team.
Yeah.
Right. So what was your mindset knowing you're about to step into the next level environment where you have players who are older than you, more skilled than you, more experienced than you? Because I know a lot of youth players listening to this right now, they're about to make that jump up to the next level or to an age group up. And I think if you don't go in with the mindset of what is the impact you want to make or how are you going to perform, you might just go with the flow and then things aren't going to work out how you want them to, because it is a big shock kind of making that jump up. So how is it for you making that jump up to the first team?
Two things for me. It was always effort. No one will ever outwork me. And the second one, I always had a chip on my shoulder. I think from 16 years old, I won an award at Newcastle called the War Jackie Award. And winning that award, I knew on the night everyone would be in a black tuxedo. And I knew the first team was going to be there, the management, the staff. I had to go in there and make sure they remembered me that night. So I wore a white tuxedo, took a big risk.
No way.
I remember going in that, before they even announced my name, I remember waiting, going through the doors, and as I'd gone through, I could see them all looking at me, and they would be thinking, who the hell does he think he is? But I didn't care. For me, I was like, you will never forget me. You'll definitely remember me. So when I get my picture, I'm not even going to look at yours. I'll take the picture, walk past the table, back to my table with my dad, eat my food, the rest of what was, get a nice little 5-course meal or whatever it was.
Nice.
And I knew for that night they wouldn't forget about me. And I remember going into training, I think that following season, the kit man, he remembered it, the physio remembered it, and that day, I think it was on match day, which is you go in as a young kid, as a youth kid, I said the youth kid, the reserves, on match day, clean up the kit, the changing room, all the spit and everything. And before all of that, I remember getting there early again, seeing the kit man, and he goes to me, oh, you're Steve, and I remember seeing the War Jackie Award, well done and all that. And the first thing I said to him, I was like, where does Alan Shearer sit? And he pointed to a spot. Now, I went over there and I sat down and I went, I'll be sitting here. And he looked at me straight away and he thought, who the hell do you think you are? But that for me was just confidence.
That's so powerful for your mindset.
For me, it was just that belief. I'm here to stay. And this was a young kid coming through. I had a season ticket with my old man and Sir John Hall stand, name on the seat, which he paid about £500, I think, for the bond.
Nice.
So that was probably a bit more, fury for my mum to have, and I said, bloody hell, more money spent on football. But that's how it was for a father and a son. That was our relationship. And that's obviously my hero now, is obviously him, and always has been. And just because of them things that he sacrificed for me when I was young, and it's kind of always that kind of, don't worry about who you're playing against. They're just a name. At the end of the day, you got to go on. It's 50-50. It's who wants it more.
It's a 1v1.
100%. You've seen so many upsets, and I think the biggest explanation I can say was FA Cup. The beauty of the FA Cup is, the underdogs get the opportunity to do it. And how many times you see for an upset? Every time I go on that pitch, I want an upset. I believe I'm the best centre half in that pitch. Every time I go on there, I have to believe that, and that's the way I am.
That's amazing. In terms of your first team debut, how did that go? Yeah,
so I went to, I was always in the match day squads, and I remember getting an opportunity against Real Mallorca, against Samuel Eto'o. We were leading the game, very comfortable, and Bobby Robson puts me on against Samuel Eto'o.
How old were you at the time?
I was 18, just
18
turned 18.
Against Samuel Eto'o.
Yeah. So I made my league debut at Wycombe Wanderers. So I was 17 there, and then I come back, and I was waiting for my opportunity. And then I got it against Real Mallorca. Played that that game, and then the week after was Bolton Wanderers away. I remember going into Bolton Wanderers, and I was thinking, I think I'm going to start today because there's a few injuries. And then the team sheet comes up and you see yourself playing at right back. Within the first 5 minutes of the game, ball comes over, went headed back to Shea Given on the corner of the 18-yard box. Got a very clever nudge off Pedersen, which is a fair one, just very clever. And he's nudged missed the header, and he's turned and hit the ball over my head, over Shea Given's head.
Happened?
Went 1-0. So we ended up losing the game.
Is that Morten Gamps Pedersen?
It was, yeah.
Oh, man, he always annoyed me.
This is your debut?
So that was a debut, so that was 1-0. And I didn't get an opportunity from that because everyone came back fit. So I had to wait so long. And I remember Graham Souness got the job after. And he'd watch the reserve sessions, and he'd watch your training. He was always like saying, you look a player, but are you a player? I want to see if you can handle it. St. James Park, how do you deal with 52,000 fans? And we played Everton. And there was an injury before I think on the Friday night. I turned up on the Saturday and he said, I need to speak to you. So I spoke to him. He goes, you're going to play today at right back. And already got little visions of what happened to Bolton. As a young kid, I thought, this is my opportunity. Parents didn't even think I'd be on the starting lineup. and my old man ends up buying two tickets for mum and dad. So I basically give our tickets away. And yeah, I played against Kevin Kilbane. First 5-10 minutes, I've gone in there and went hard. Felt the roar from the fans, and that was it for me. This is my career started.
Yeah, you feed off that.
And that was the best feeling I had, and everything that game went great. And I just had so much energy. It was just the best feeling, and I never looked back from that day.
I think that's one big thing is after that, I guess in your debut, in a way, it's a mistake that you made, and a lot of players, they get down after a big moment like that. But it goes back to what you said earlier about the confidence and the backing yourself, and you have to be willing to believe in yourself and that you're going to get back up and 100%. You're going to have great performances, and that's eventually what led you to that good performance that you had, which then you built momentum and kept going on.
Well, I think there's a lot of people, you guys may know a lot of players, there's people who probably relate to this. They've been in situations where they get a chance, it goes wrong, you are to blame. You have to accept that, and it's kind of like, it was kind of sugar-coated after the game. Bobby Robson was kind of saying, oh, he's a young boy, protect him and this, that and the other, but it was a good learning curve, and I think, how do you react from that? Because it's never all, for a footballer, it is like a roller coaster ride, but you just have to enjoy that ride. You're going to get highs, your lows, and I always tell the boys now, don't get too high and don't get too low. If you can stay that middle ground, you're laughing. But a lot of people beat themselves up and they overthink and they panic. They've been doing football all their life, but they'll still question themselves on match day. Even now, professional footballers in the Premier League will question driving to the game, that whether it's through the social media, people overthink things, and fans, we stop doing this, stop doing that. That's how a lot of players will look at them and go, oh, social media saying I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. I need to please the fans. You just need to do what you're good at.
Are you grateful that social media wasn't such a big hit during your playing day?
Massively, yeah. I wouldn't have been on it, to be fair. I wouldn't want to, because I see so many people coming after training. They're on the social media, and it's a big platform. And I think it's a good way to relate to fans. But I think with the modern day football, I think it cannot be healthy at times where things aren't going well for you. I think you'll overthink think things. You'll do things that you're not used to. You're probably trying too hard, and that's the biggest thing. Just feeling relaxed and going out there with confidence. Confidence is the biggest thing in football. I think when you go out there and you're playing free, there's no better feeling. That's why I always go back to when I was 18. I had no fear. I'd go in there whether I'm going into a challenge to hurt someone. I didn't care. I was there to win a game, and I'd do whatever it takes to win the game. And that's just how I was. I put myself in front of it, smash my face, so I didn't care. It was just like, I'm going to win, and that's it.
I think you nailed it with the roller coaster analogy, by the way, because football really is this journey of like a lot of ups and downs, and oftentimes with a lot of players you only get to see the highlights and the ups, but every single player has had the downs, and what really makes your journey is how are you going to react in those downs. Are you still going to be confident? Are you still going to work hard? Are you still going to keep going and stay persistent? And if you're willing to get through those downs, that's when you have the great moments in your career. Yeah,
it's like when I was 8 years old, playing probably for the team that was a year above me, and I was on the bench every week, going to the games on the bench, never getting any minutes because the manager's son was always playing in my position, so I never get any game time. And I remember the amount of crying. I was always beating myself up, thinking, oh, I'm not good enough, this, that, and the other. But still, who's there? Your dad, picking you up, taking you on the pitch after, just to make you feel good again. It was always going to the games, reenact how they scored the goals, making you feel good. Following week, you're on the bench again. You do question yourself. I had a good year of that, never playing. Then I moved to a football club, Cramlington Juniors. I had one training session, and Newcastle Scout was there. Ever since that time, it was just a matter of time. I'd had one good training session. That's all it was, when a scout was there. So you never know who's watching is the biggest thing.
Yeah, you made it count.
Yeah, it was the biggest thing. And I remember one of our first games as an under-9 Newcastle School of Excellence was against Middlesbrough. We got beaten 9-0. That game, 9-0, you play like 25 or 30 minutes. We got beat 9-0, and I remember coming in the following week, and John Carver was the academy director at the time, and he just says, listen, what's the difference between him? So he's pointing to me, and he says, he's growing spurt. So he's going through your growing spurt, and a lot of people have different kind of things that they're going through, and some have family problems, but you have to understand what they're going through. And I think he identifies certain things, and he had the Paul Winsper at the time was the first team fitness guy, so he worked with me doing some coordination stuff with cones, and having someone taking the time out to do that kind of stuff helped me massively. And I think I'm very lucky with the people who I was surrounded with. That definitely helped me on my journey, because I started off, it wasn't all happy and all roses. You're going to have to go through the disappointments, but I think that shapes you as a character. You've seen what football's like. You're going to get all the people behind the scenes. The amount of times I think footballers now, with the agents, the people behind the scenes, a manager might like you, but the sporting director doesn't. the people behind the analysis are saying too many injuries, like Moneyball. Oh, I don't know about this guy. Someone could kill your dream or kill your chance of moving. And that's the kind of thing that's going on now. Football is probably 25 voices in the Monday morning meetings now. We're probably, sitting here now, but knowing that in Newcastle, the Premier League, the analysis that goes behind it, that's why they get paid the big bucks, because it's a pressure job. If you don't get your results, you're gone. And I think for footballers now, there's not many friends in football where I say within 2 or 3 years that a player comes in, player goes, you forget about them. It becomes quite like selfish. You got to graft. If you don't graft, you're out. And that's where it's like it's a revolving door. And sink or swim.
Cutthroat.
It is. And you have to deal with it. And that's the business we're in. But yeah, I loved it. I think for me, getting involved there, you see so many generations of players, and you got to perform to stay. And I think being around in Newcastle in my generations was something special.
How did you react to what happened at Aston Villa early on in your career?
That's probably the hardest thing I've had to deal with. I think the first relegation. That was the hardest thing, especially the players that we had at the time. If you look at the team we had, everyone was telling me, you ain't going to go down, the team's too good. But the problem is, individually very good. But if you don't play as a team, this is what happens, and it's, you're never too good. And
you stuck around for that. Was there ever a time where you thought, because I'm sure opportunities came about throughout your career about chances to leave Newcastle, because there were points where you were in the England fold and England setup as well. You never quite made it for starting for England. Is that a regret? Do you think if you hadn't stuck with Newcastle and maybe moved on elsewhere, you might have had a better chance to start or make a start for England?
No, I think it's just the generation I had. What you got to realise is John Terry, Rio Ferdinand. There was like the Ledley Kings. There was Jimmy Carragher, Julian Lescott,
Sol Campbell.
There was so many top centre halves. That was the kind of the golden generation back then, what people call it. I was just unlucky to be born in my era. I think at the time with that amount of quality, but it was a thing where I was England under 21 captain. Had an opportunity to leave, but then obviously when we went down, there was an opportunity to go, and when I was relegated, I had to be in that team to bring us back up. There was no chance I could leave my hometown club relegated and just leave like that. For me, it meant more, so that's one of the reasons why I stuck around, and I'm glad a lot of players did to get us back up.
Well, I'm glad you did, because as I said before, we got signed Newcastle frame shirts signed by the whole squad that won the championship that year. So
unbelievable.
Yeah, to have your signature on that makes a difference for us.
I hope I haven't devalued it, so I'll be all right.
Well, he has, because the first time we were meant to have it as a prop on one of these walls, but it obliterated in the elevator getting it up here. So thanks to Sahel for that.
No, we got another one because it was our 18th birthday at the time, and you got one and I got one, so I got one in pristine condition. So
brilliant.
That's actually worth something.
To be fair, I'm glad you did, because we've always wanted to know whose shirt it was, because I'm hoping they're match-worn shirts. I want to see a S. Taylor on the back of it.
Yeah.
It'd be class.
No, if it smelled bad, it'd probably Ryan Taylor, but it's probably mine.
I'm sure I appreciate that. No, he was down there actually for the game yesterday. He was in the sort of the fan zones with Shola, I saw as well. So no, it's really good that the ex-players are still really very much involved. Tim Krul was down there as well, I saw. Yeah. So no, it's really, really good.
What did it take to get back to the Prem that year?
I think the belief, the best thing I remember coming back after the summer was the hurt, and I think for everybody there, everyone had their own agenda. Whether some people coming to the end of their career, some people wanted to get a move. So obviously myself was involved in the relegation, which was the hurt. I think everyone had their own little piece of what it means to them, and we had a group of guys that probably came together more in our last pre-season game, which was against Leyton Orient, and we got beat. I think it was 7-0.
It was a big loss.
Big loss going into the first game of the season, and that's probably the best thing, because when we lost that game, we had a big team meeting on the Monday. Put your hand up if you want to leave, and there's a few that didn't want to be there, and the owner got rid of them. But that just brought us closer together, because we went through there. Every team is like, it's a cup final for them. So if you stay in the game till 70 minutes, we'll win because of our fitness. And we backed ourselves and how fit we were as a group, and the amount of team bonding sessions we were just together. And I think that was the biggest thing that got us through that league, was the togetherness, which obviously when you do get promotion, the next year is the difficult one. You don't want to come back down. So that was the one. Can we invest, stay there and survive that season, which is important. Not even think about Europe. It was all about just survive. Then the following year, then you kick on, get your players and get back to hopefully European football and those European nights, which are special. And I think going from the Championship, getting rid of the players who were, not really fighting for the football club,
weren't there for the right right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe for the money they were there, but I think a lot from then it was brilliant. I think for Newcastle they probably needed that, the transition from that to us moving forward. Chris Hughton, which I thought did a fantastic job, probably doesn't get the credit that he actually deserves. He was unbelievable with the players, his man management, and the way he dealt with the fans. I thought he was very good. But yeah, I think from then, and obviously the European days started to come back again. I'll never forget the Anzi, the Russian team we played at St. James Park 1-0. One of my best experiences, that winning 1-0. But the atmosphere of that game was unbelievable.
What did he say scored the winner, didn't he?
Papi Cisse.
Yeah.
Was Eto'o in that game as well?
Eto'o and William, remember?
Then William,
yeah, they got their moves obviously after that.
A chance to go up against Eto'o again.
Exactly. So that actually, I remember talking to him about that and got his shirt from that as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
how football happens, it's like swings and roundabouts. But for me, the moment against Real Mallorca, and I remember like 2 minutes to go, I've literally just stood next to Eto'o. I thought, I'm going to have this kid's shirt, 100%. And once I got his shirt, I did a big mistake by giving him my shirt, which I think was number 38 at the time. He's probably uses it as like a cleaner around the house.
Oh, yeah.
His has gone framed in the games room straight away.
Fair enough. Those are great times, the European football, and hopefully it's not too long till.
Well, that's Newcastle. That's the biggest thing, and people probably don't understand. But in Newcastle, it's a football city, and when you have them European nights on a Thursday night, they're incredible. Honestly, that's everyone. You go to the supermarket, and the grandmas in there are giving you all sorts of sticks. Just make sure you bloody win. And it's just great to have that kind of, the love around the whole city. Everywhere you go, everyone's talking about football. And that is just Newcastle. That's our identity, really.
Yeah. You've mentioned a few managers, Sir Bobby Robson, Chris Hughton, Graham Souness. You've played under a lot of Newcastle managers. Mm-hmm. What kind of impacts have each of them made, or who had the most impact on your career?
I think everyone's different. Everyone brings a different style to them. Obviously, Kevin Keegan, the way his man management was, is the feel-good factor. I think Sir Bobby Robson with his kind of the granddad figure that you don't want to let him down. I think just having him in a room, he doesn't really need to say anything. I think just having him in the room, you just want to fight for him, you want to play for him, and that's the biggest thing. Even in this modern day football, if a player is willing to fight for the manager, I think it shows on the pitch. I was very fortunate to be around that. Even with Graham Souness when he came in, his probably role was more to get rid of the egos, the kind of the players in there at the time. If you've seen how many players he had to get rid of, but he was very hard on me as a kid. But I relished that. Bobby Robson was very good because he knew how to handle me. There was times where I believed I should be playing, so I'd knock on his door and he could see the anger that I wasn't happy. And before I even could get my words out, he'd already be talking about my family. How's your mum and dad doing? How's your dad? He's the ex-police. Oh, this, that, and the other. Then by the time I left the meeting, I got no words out. He's got his arm around me, walking down the corridor. I remember the first team players saying, "Hey, I see you got your words out." And it just killed me. It's just how he knew how I wasn't happy, and he knew how to switch it around. And for me, it was the emotion, and you just didn't want to let him down. For me, that was the biggest thing in training and in games. Even though sometimes in training you've got an injury, you don't want to tell the physios because you want to keep playing. You don't want to be in the physio room when the manager's walking past and he sees you. It's that look of not even saying anything that hurt me more than anything. Any manager that just looked at you but didn't say anything, that was enough for me. And I was like, just say something. Don't just look at me. Just say something. But the reaction from that, and probably one of the biggest guys that helped me probably get to that first team, understanding what it meant to deal with that, the anger of first team football, the winning mentality, was Alan Irvine. I was under 17s and he was the academy director. A Scotsman, that angry Scotsman voice. When he goes angry, even his standards, we went through the season, I think, unbeaten. But even coming in half time 2-0 up, he's going off it because you might be dropping your standards. And that was him just going hard at me. And I'm looking around the rest of the dressing room. I thought we were having a pretty good game. He would just batter me. But he knew how to just keep you level headed. Didn't want you to get big time.
There was always 1% more.
Always. And I think that was the biggest thing, even in training. He always knew that even if you're having a good time, if you're doing better than probably the rest of them, he'd always hammer you and single you out and to make you just ground you. And that's probably the best thing that happened to me as a young kid, is just having that kind of guy do that. For an example, we had a game one time and my right back got smashed, went off the pitch, and I remember the kid who did it. So I've just gone and just smashed the kid. Straight away, he brought me off in front of the camera and just went through me. And it was just, don't let your emotion take over the game. Play your game. There's going to be moments in your career that will happen where you'll see one of your friends, your teammates. You can't get involved in that kind of stuff. You have to play your game, because that's probably what his job was to do that. And it was kind of a learning curve, and you have to learn different aspects of how football is. When you're winning 1-0, when you're losing 1-0. when you're drawn, and that's what we try and teach the players now at Gulf United. We have like games where you're winning, you're losing, you're drawn. How do you deal with that kind of, the game management? Times get the ball in the box. It's like Alex Ferguson. The amount of times where they're behind, you always believe Fergie time.
Yeah.
But he just went for like a 4-4-2, ball in the box, make teams defend, and you'll always get chances. And it doesn't have to be all ticky-tacky. You don't have to play out from the back every time. And everyone's got this persona now, the Pep Guardiola. We've got to be playing like Barcelona. We've got to be playing like Manchester City or Arteta now at Arsenal. Mm-hmm. It's all about your squad that you've got, the players you've got, and you've got to do like, I think Sean Dyche hit the nail on the head at Burnley. He got results for years with the team he's got, no budget. He understands the team that he has, what the strengths was, and stuck to it. And I think that's the modern day footballer now, is don't get caught up in playing a different way that you're not used to. Stick to your basics. If you do the basics well, it'll go a long way for you.
And in terms of your management style, if you were to compare to one of the coaches that you worked under, who do you think you would relate most to?
I think Chris Hughton. I think he always the feel-good factor with the group, understanding your players. And I would never isolate my players. I think on the pitch, I'm always trying to protect them. And the intensity and going into detail before the game is just to make sure everyone understands individual, going around every player before we go out there. Do you know your role? This is what we need to do. This is how the team shape's going to be. This is the team. I'm expecting him to do this. You'll do this. I want everyone to have that bit of detail of animations, and I was very visual. So when someone showed me visual, I knew it. If you're just talking to me and trying to tell me, sometimes I might not.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Mm-hmm. But I need visual. So when I have like animations and I see 3 points, that's enough for me. Three little options, that's it. That's all I need.
I think you'd love playing under Eddie Howe. I think he's very similar in that sort of sense to Chris Hughton.
I think an 18-year-old Stephen Taylor would have loved that. I think 100% would have been loving the intensity, the way he is as a manager, because I'm hearing from the likes of the players there now how intense he is. The detail he goes into is huge.
Yeah.
We bumped into Chris Hughton actually at Gateshead Stadium. It was a fixture, Gateshead versus Newcastle under 21s. I think
under 21s, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, absolute gentleman. He had all the time for three, like 18, 19-year-old at the time. He had all the time for us. He took us aside and spoke to us. Absolute gentleman.
Incredible guy. No, as a player at the time though, it was a nightmare, because after games when you're on the bus and you want to leave, he's speaking to every fan. He's listen, get on the bus and let's go.
Am I right in saying he's the Ghana manager now?
That's right. Yeah, he got the job. Yeah.
He's done well, because what I've seen recently is he's had a lot of conversations behind closed doors with players who have dual allegiance or citizenship. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but players who are in the England setup, for example, who have Ghanaian descent.
Like Hudson-Odoi, maybe.
Yeah, I think he was one of them. There's a lot, and I think in a year or two time, I think whatever the next African competition, I think Ghana are huge favourites, especially with Hughton at the helm.
But I think that ended too early. I know Alan Pardew came in straight after Hughton? Because Hughton left in around about the December of the season after the championship. And it was Pardew who took over, wasn't it? What was because European football back under Pardew, what was he like?
Yeah, I think at first the fans didn't really buy into it. I think they were thinking he was too well connected from London with the Mike Ashley scenario. But listen, he did well.
Was there any truth in that?
I don't think so. I think when he came, he was under pressure a little bit from the start. But I thought with European football, we had a great chance, especially the night against Benfica. And we had a great year. We finished 5th. We were top of the league, I think, till December. And then we started having a lot of injuries. I ended up rupturing my Achilles. We had a few hamstrings, a few knee injuries. But going into the games there, we had that belief. We had Hatem Ben Arfa, Pape Cissé.
Front three.
Yeah. Demba Ba,
Pape Cissé.
But honestly, you can see people like Chelsea's backing off us. And when you've got someone like Ben Arfa, who's a maverick, you've got Johan Kabay, who played in front of me with Czech Tiote. It was me and Colaccini, who had Danny Simpson, and with Ryan Taylor or Jose Enrique. Yeah. And it was just, we had a great, I think, 11 there where we knew our roles and we were just consistent every week. Same team, going out there, getting your results. And we believe we can win every game. I remember going into games believing that this team who we're playing against, they don't want it today. And when you got Ben Arfa running at you, who takes about 3 or 4 players out the game. So
I was going to ask specifically about him, because obviously he created some amazing memories, and I think, albeit he didn't maybe have the psychological side to get him to where he could have been before he had all the technical talent in the world. But what was your experience working with someone of his ilk? Maybe he didn't track back as much as he had, but did you leave him to do it?
We sacrificed that, and we understand the player that he was. Is we understand there's games where we're going to be under the cosh. It'll feel like we're a man down because he's not getting them back. But we always knew, give him the ball at any one time, he can go and change the game. So we as a team sacrificed that. We understood our players, and I think that's one of the game management. I think even with Rio Ferdinand, I think, early stages of Cristiano Ronaldo's career at Man United, where there was games where he wasn't tracking back, similar sort of scenario to Ben Arthur, but he knew, he says, at times, this guy's, he's going to change the game for us, which he obviously did a lot.
It's like Saint-Maximin now, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Give him that freedom and he can cause dangerous situations.
Oh, he's an incredible player, probably one of the best 1v1 attackers in the Premier League, and I think probably even around the world. You give him the ball and...
how would you deal with him?
You just got to go and absolutely smash him, put him out the game. I think you got to take a yellow card and say, hopefully he gets off the pitch and is in the ambulance off to the hospital. But that's the only way I think you can stop him.
Yeah, he's a powerful player, unpredictable. Sometimes it might seem that he might not know what he's doing at times, but he has such control. The ball never leaves his feet, but he's so left-footed, right-footed. And I think he's a big game player. Obviously, we saw how he was against Man City. I thought he played well last night. I know we might talk about that. Maybe we'll avoid that conversation. I don't know. But I think he's someone that you have to afford freedom to. Yeah. I know that as part of Hull's system, you have Almiron and Isaac and Wilson pressing like mad, and then you've got your midfielders backing them up. But I think if we can afford some freedom and let him save his energy for those long bursting runs forward and taking 3-4 players and jinking his way into the box, it's fine. But I think there is an element after the World Cup especially of predictability, like I said before, doubling up on him, get 3 players out wide, the Trippier Almiron combination, for example, that Bruno through ball. I think certain things are getting found out, but certainly I think he's a big part of our future if we're to make European football.
Yeah, no, it worked well. I think when we finished 5th that year, I remember with Pardew, for what he was, what he gave that year was a team that we hit teams in the counter a lot. But the following year, I remember I think he went and watched I don't know if it was the European Championships. He watched Italy, and what he tried to do for us then was get our fullbacks, going up and down, which didn't suit our system, which left us very exposed at the back. Mm-hmm. Made Tiote doing a lot more running, so he was getting out of position a lot more. Whereas we were more solid the previous year when teams were coming at us. We found a lot of success from that because of the players that we had in the transition with Demba Ba, Papi Cisse and Ben Arthur. I think if we stuck to that kind of system and the players, and we kept the players, we didn't let our star players leave, I think Newcastle could have overtook Tottenham in the European for many years after that as well, because we should have kicked on from there. Well, that's when Modric and Bale were obviously at Tottenham, but I do believe we could have really kicked on if we kept the players and invested.
Just talking of Tiote, that 4-4 against Arsenal, what was your emotions like in the final stages of that game?
Not just that game, it was just the way he was as a player. Every day he trained, and when he's not on your side, oh my God, he's a nightmare.
All I've heard is that he trained as if he played.
He did, and it's just that, like, when you get a collision with him on his knee, and you think, oh, just leave us alone. Just leave us alone. You're coming in with a dead leg. The amount of players that come in on the dead legs, and they'll go in the physio room, was that check Tiote? Yeah, that's a check. It's all the time, and he comes back, what happened? And you just like, what happened? You've just absolutely dismantled me. That's what's happened. You know what I mean? So like,
back in the physio room.
Back in the physio room. But as a guy, when he scored the goal, not just that, his every game, the intensity he brought, 100% for Newcastle, never give up, and that's why the fans loved him as well. And I think you can show that as well, how he was as a person, a great person to be around the dressing room, and you need that, different characters, and we were very lucky with the squad that we had there.
Yeah, amazing. In terms of your goal scoring record for Newcastle, how was it always feeling like scoring at St James's?
Yeah, the best. I think scoring at the Gallagher end first in the Intertoto Cup, the final game there, getting Celta Vigo, my first goal. I ran like Forrest Gump all the way from the corner flag past the dugout. Couldn't believe it.
I always remember that nickname.
Oh, I could never forget it. It was just literally, what do you do when you score a goal? It's just like, just go crazy.
I was saying to Josh beforehand, so my granddad always said to us, when Stephen Taylor scores, you need to lock the gates of St James because he doesn't know where he's going. He's going to run out the stadium.
I'm running. But I'll be honest with you, I think it was the 86th minute there, and I remember running past, and as I got back, I was absolutely blowing. And the ball kept coming my way. I just had to just kick it. I think I toe poked the few. I was like, listen, I'm out of the game now.
Just switch it.
Just switch it. Switch the game. But no, what a feeling. I think score the Sir John Hall end, where me and my dad had the season tickets, so that always meant more to me there.
Yeah.
Obviously the Gallagher end was the most popular one, with obviously Alan Shearer and all. Everyone always talks about those goals, and the best feeling. Yeah, you can't ever get away from that.
What's your thoughts on the stadium expansion? Obviously, they've just secured the land behind where the Strawberry Pub was.
I think I would wish it would happen when I was playing. I wish it could be all the way around, like the Sir John Hall, all the way around the stadium. I think it looked phenomenal. It's iconic in the city of Newcastle. You go around there, it's in the middle there. That's the best thing about with Newcastle compared to all these other football clubs in England.
Yeah, it's perched on top of the hill.
Yeah.
You can see it from everywhere.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
like
glad
a
the
church.
developments weren't going to go ahead, or they did a U-turn on those decisions. But there was that season where you scored 3 goals in the final 3 games of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it made history there. They said that it's never been done before, where you've scored consistent games, defender. I thought, I've got to do this. So I was literally just I was asking for
So
blockers.
it was on your mind before it happened?
No,
or-
because I wanted to do it. I remember I was getting chances, but I wasn't getting. I was probably blocking. I think previously I was blocking quite a bit instead of actually going and attack it and getting someone to block for me. And when I got my first one, I thought, I've got to go for it now. And it happened. I think my last one was against West Brom. So I scored past Chelsea, the first
I
one.
remember. Yeah.
So was this 3 in a row?
3 in a row, yeah.
Final 3 games of the season.
Wow.
It was the last game of the season, was against West Brom, and I thought, I've got to do it here.
Yeah.
And I remember the ball just bounced in the box. I just stayed around the 6-yard box, and I thought, just someone hit it my way, and there's just a little tap in. So to do that there was good for me, but always getting chances, always whether it's a head back across, and I enjoyed the kind of, going for corners, free kicks, even throws, and I always like in my career, wherever I went, I scored, so it was good.
There probably is a similar feeling when Dan Burns scored that cup goal as well. That, like, as a local player scoring for your club, there must be no better feeling.
We'll look at him after the game in the changing room with his dance. I think that's what says it all. But that's the love I think Newcastle fans will have for Dan Burn as a guy and as a player. That just speaks volumes. I think he shows how much it means to play for Newcastle United. And every game he plays, he's unbelievable. And people wouldn't think someone who's 9 foot tall can play at left back, but he's given them people who are humongously tall, they can play there. But he's a phenomenal player, and I think he's a leader as well, which helps.
Yeah. It's funny with that goal. Obviously, he would be the first person to admit he never thought he would have scored, but obviously he jinked his way past 3 or 4 players, slots it in, and then he didn't know what celebration to go for. He's like, he said himself, it's like playing FIFA and spamming the celebration buttons. He was going through all sorts, but
ended up being a knee slide, wasn't it?
Knee slide, yeah, brave one. But certainly for someone of his height, he is a very technical player.
He's good.
And I think, obviously, we bought him probably primarily to play as centre-back, but he's transitioned left-back with Target being out. And he's done well. Obviously, in that game, he made a lot of surges, bombing forward and everything, and he's capable sure.
I played against him when he was at Wigan, and even Wigan on the ball, for a big man, he had great feet. On the ball, very comfortable. He got up and down there as well. He played like in the left side of a 3, and he was a machine. I remember the side of him attacking the ball. I thought, he's definitely got a bit, and obviously it didn't take him long until he's playing the Premier League football.
Yeah. I still think that you're obviously, considering his height and the height difference, without question, you're a better header of the ball than he is, though. For his size, I think he should be better in the box than he currently is. He had a close chance last night, didn't he? Went wide of the post.
Yeah, sure. Who's the best centre-back partner you had?
Obviously, I like playing with Jonathan Woodgate. Was my first one.
Yeah.
For me, he was the kind of guy who taught us for about 2 years. I think from when I was coming out of school in there, it was just that what he was doing. I just watched him in Newcastle before he went to Real Madrid, and that was the best thing for me to have someone like him. And then obviously with Colaccini, we had the successful years with the European years and finishing 5th. But playing with Colo was brilliant. He was like a Rolls Royce. I think on the ball, I had to do his dirty work with all the physical stuff.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I think you complemented each other very well because obviously, not to do you a disservice, but I think he was very good on the ball and very silky, very technical, and you offered that balance with the physical side of things and the tenacity in 1v1 situations, for example. Yeah,
you had to. I think there's some games where it would be it's very ugly games where you play against Bolton, Stoke City. Them nights on a Monday night, you got to do that bit extra, and sometimes you might feel they're going to play a lot more balls on them, so you got to kind of switch up now and again, and it's just about helping each other out. I think that's the biggest partnership you got to do in the games, and find your strengths and stick to your strengths. A lot of people always think, weaknesses, I can't do this. Just stick to your strengths. I think that's the biggest thing for a footballer. Don't overthink, and partnerships, you got to build a partnership early. What's he good at, what's he not? I'll just accommodate that.
In terms of playing under different captains, obviously Colaccini is probably quite a quiet, I don't know, on the pitch he looks quite a quiet figure. I would say let the football do his talking.
Like led by example.
Led by example, but then you have people like Kevin Nolan who might be a bit more outspoken. So what kind of captain did you like to play under?
For me, it was, I think Shearer was the biggest one, because it was that belief. As soon as his name's on the team sheet, you just believe you're going to win. I think it's just his aura around the place. I think he didn't have to say too much before the games. Just his presence was enough. And I think the dressing room that we had, it was all leaders. I think going back from I'm big on the core. So obviously with Shea Given, Woodgate, Gary Speed, Shearer, the leaders, the characters that they were. It was just, you're going out there with men. And I think that you want to be like that as well. So
Yeah.
when you see the people around you, you want to rub shoulders with that, and you want to become that.
That's amazing. I want to break it up just with a quick question. It's going to be a scenario where you have 3 players,
Yep.
all players you've played with,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to decide, you have to start one in your squad,
Yep.
bench one and sell one.
Okay.
Okay. All midfielders, you have to start, bench or sell Cabaye, Nolan or Barton. So that's Johan Cabaye, Kevin Nolan and Joey Barton.
I'd probably start. I'd start Joey Barton.
Okay.
I'll start Kevin Nolan, bench Joey Barton. I'll sell Johan Cabaye.
You'll get money for Johan Cabaye.
That's
What was
what
it, 30 million from
I think that's the one.
PSG?
I think Joey Barton will be a good one to bring on, and the impact that he would give us. But Kevin Nolan's presence, the leadership he's got. But Cabaye is always going to be one out of them 3 that will get me the money.
No, really good. I really like that. I don't think I would argue with that too much, to be fair. I agree with selling Cabaye as well. He actually finished his career off in
Al Nassr.
In Al Nassr
Yeah.
as well. I bumped into him actually as well. But now he's I think a youth coach or academy coach in PSG. So he's still in and around similar team.
Yeah, I have a question actually, more of a player's perspective, Stevie.
Yeah.
So you've played at the highest level, like 15 plus years, coaching now too. If you went back to 17, 18-year-old self, what would you tell your younger self? What's something you wish you knew that now, like the 15 years of being at the highest level, you kind of have this experience? If you could go back to that moment, what would that piece of information be?
Probably I'd train harder than I play. I wouldn't be wrapped up in cotton wool. And I would do, I think, nutrition. I think definitely look after that better. I think back in the day there was, especially the training ground, the food is not as detailed as it is now. I think a lot of players are getting blood tests that seeing what your actual foods are and all that, the detail that goes in behind the scenes. And I think in Newcastle we kind of had managers and physios or whatever it was who tried probably to protect you. So you go in the sessions and maybe they'll try and bring you out of the session. Right, don't do too much. Come in. I'd probably go in. I'd have to train the way my body was. I had to go in there and train harder. So I noticed that in the latter stages of my career, I went to Portland Timbers. And they didn't care about my career at Newcastle. They said, listen, you played for Newcastle. You're here now, but you're going to train harder than you play. And it actually helped me prolong my career, that. Because going out to the MLS was the intensity in training I was doing way more than I would ever do at Newcastle. And that was nearly every day. I don't think I had many days off in Portland. So when I came back from that, I had about 3 months off before Ipswich. Broke down with a hamstring. And that was kind of a big wake-up call because I had to take a step back to move forward. And I remember going to Peterborough, 52 games, best thing I ever did. I really did, loved it. Fantastic football club, and it gave me a platform of a lot of people wouldn't touch you. With the injuries I've had, 2 ruptured Achilles, 2 dislocated shoulders, bicep tendon rupture. What you got to realize, you're going around a table with guys from, who are out of university, all the stats and stuff, saying I wouldn't touch him. He's had too many injuries. You can get a younger player who can do this, more of a resale value. So then you're kind of like a war horse. You're waiting for someone to take a hit on you, and who's going to take a hit? And for me, it was a team, Wellington Phoenix in New Zealand. And honestly, the reason why I went there, I'm probably next to nothing, is the showing the love of that kind of like, they went all out. And they literally, it was amazing. Instead of all these other clubs that were just like, oh, we'll see, we're waiting for another player, we'll have a look at it. The fact is, they were like, we want you straight away. That was it for me. That was enough. Going there, guaranteed to play every single game. I think, coming to 32, 33 years old, you want to go and you want to play.
You were captain there as well, weren't you?
Yeah, captain Wellington Phoenix, and we made history out there, finishing 3rd, where the club for 13 years has been like a punching bag at the bottom of the table. But at least the owner of that, first 2 years, he allowed me to bring the likes of Gary Hooper across, and David Ball, who played at Fleetwood and started off his youth development in Manchester City. But we had some good players, and I think as me, when I was coming through the ranks there, I was so hungry, and I would probably play injured a lot of the games as well. I'll probably now, if I was going back, I probably wouldn't have played in games because it might have impacted us further down my career. But I just thought the old school Terry Butcher mentality, John Terry mentality, you just get out on that pitch and you didn't want to let your team down. Even when Shearer used to walk past, you don't want to say you're injured. You just say, are you going to be 5th the weekend? You just say, yeah, no matter what, even though you weren't really 100%. There's a lot of games I played and I wasn't 100%, but I just didn't want to shy away from it. I remember before I snapped my Achilles was in agony. I think I was down at Tottenham. And I remember saying to Shearer, was the manager at the time, but we were struggling with relegation. And I said to him about 20 minutes in, I said, listen, my Achilles is killing me. And he just says, listen, get out there. And I was like, okay. So you just got to get out there and you got to play that.
Do whatever it takes for the team.
I was popping them pinky anti-inflammatories every game. The amount of times just because I don't want to feel any pain. And that was like normal back in the day. I remember seeing the Gary Speeds, Shea Givens, that take these pinky anti-inflammatories. And they were like Smarties to me. I was just getting them down me all the time. So for me, I didn't feel the consequences until probably the latter stages of my career, the ruptured Achilles and big ligament injuries. You know, it was just the one thing you have to deal with. And unfortunately for me, I had to deal with that. But I tell you what, I never had the same injury again after that. And prolonged my career by going abroad and training harder and proving that you can do it. And you can play until, 35. And I'll go out on my own terms, not because of injury.
Yeah, looking at how people, I was going to mention about Newcastle United in terms of the rehabilitation and coming back from injury. I remember famous images of players in paddling pools and things like that. Now it's all cryotherapy sort of baths and those kind of things. It's just the better equipped to deal with injuries. And I can imagine you probably wish it was implemented a little bit earlier.
No, 100%. I think if you look at the players who even had the injuries at Newcastle, when they left, they didn't have injuries. And, you know, you go behind the scenes. Did we train hard enough? Probably not. You know, was we... You know, there was the physio department at the time, and I remember when I left and I was looking for a club at the time, and the physio department at the time was saying, "Oh, well, you might have had a deficiency or something in the body or something." That was just, nobody knew that, which is the biggest thing. But I think as times go on, you've got to move with the times. You know, you can't stick with what's happened years and years and years ago. But it's always difficult for the physios because sometimes the physios, their kind of jobs are on the line as well. And with footballers, they sometimes lie to the physio because they want to play, and a lot of players did that, which kills the kind of physios in your club doctors. So for a lot of us as players, we didn't really help ourselves, I feel, and we have to take our own responsibility with that. And that's the biggest thing, I think, with maybe modern day footballers, always want to point the blame. And to be honest, with the physios, it's difficult because you want to play. If you don't play, someone's going to take your place. And that's the kind of the hardest thing, I think, for a doctor and a physio to pass you fit, really.
You have the cryo, you have the ice bath, like you have all those top things, which really help recovery and stuff. But a lot of players listening to this right now, like they don't have access to that. So even doing all this stuff outside of training, you always talk about it, doing the extra stretching, foam rolling, making sure you eat right, making sure you get the sleep. I think those things compounding over time make the biggest difference in terms of preventing injuries and making sure you're performing well. Yeah,
routine for me was the going to America and doing foam roll band work. So I always focus on my hips, my glutes, especially with a guy who's had injuries, Achilles, my shoulders, bicep tendon and the hamstring. I always just did every routine. Did my foam roll for 20 minutes before games. It was always get my band, make sure my glutes are activated before I go on the pitch. Once I did them two things, for me, that was me ready to go and get warmed up. So I always did that injury prevention in the change room where everyone's just normally sitting there talking, listening to music. I always had to do that. So I always had to have my 20 minutes of my foam roll in my glutes.
Yeah.
Once I did that, that was every game. And I was like, put my body with a bit of caffeine, pumped it up with a lot of caffeine maybe. But it was the recovery for me after games. Obviously, if I got a game close together, I'd always go in the ice bath straight after. If I didn't, I'd always go 3 times a week in the heat. So I was always in the sauna. 20 minutes in there, and I'd always go to the Tyson Fury mentality of I ain't leaving the sauna until someone leaves it. So that 20 minutes is up and someone comes in, I'll go a little bit longer. Yeah. But the heat helped me. I think in Portland Timbers, I started off there every recovery, whether it was a steam room or sauna, 20 minutes. My body felt like WD-40 all over. It felt great. But it got me out on the training pitch and never missed training, never missed any games. And that was the biggest thing. I think 6 years of no major injuries.
I think we're coming to the end of this. I wanted to kind of finish off with a quick fire question.
Go on, yeah.
Very, very quick fire.
Yeah.
You have to choose between these. So, Metro Centre or Dubai Mall?
Dubai Mall.
Can you name the 3 Geordies in Auf Wiedersehen Pep?
No.
No? All right. Well, it's always Dennis and Neville. The main character in the Goal movie. Goal, obviously set in Newcastle. Goal one. Mexican.
Yeah, Nunez.
There we go. Yep. Favorite manager you've played under?
Sir Bob Robson.
Laziest teammate?
Ben Arthur.
Play out your Newcastle career as it was, or get 100 caps for your country and win the World Cup, but you've spent your career at Sunderland?
No, I played Newcastle career.
Okay, fair enough.
Not a chance.
Your lowest moment?
Relegation.
and the highlight of your playing career?
Playing for Newcastle United.
I love that. That's a great way to finish.
Nice
Amazing.
one.
Stevie, thank you so much.
Guys, thank
for
you.
coming on.
I appreciate it.
Let's
Thank you
get
very
that
much.
promotion. 2 big matches coming
That's
up.
it, yep.
It's going to be exciting. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed. You can listen to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and watch it on YouTube. Let us know who you want to see next, and we'll see you next time. Peace.